Welcome y bienvenidos to this episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast. I am one of your hosts and teachers here on the show, Justine Gonzalez, and I am thrilled with our featured voices guest. You will see she has a little icon and logo in the corner of her background, and I'm excited to introduce you to this guest because I got connected with her through a process and certification that I hold that is very near and dear to my heart, not only professionally, but personally. It has had a profound impact on me. So I am just honored that, I get to be here with this guest who also has done so much work with the PCM community. Who holds a degree in communications from Purdue University, amidst many other certifications like being a practitioner of NLP and some other things. I will let her determine how she's going to fully introduce herself. But on our podcast, as you know, with our featured voices guests, we get the opportunity to sit down with industry leaders, experts in their field, and just people who are incredible beings doing incredible things. And you all know we like to ask some questions about cultural origin story, as well as just getting into authentic conversation, because at the end of the day, we all have a lot of the same experiences in this thing called life. So if we can hear stories from others about how maybe they've lived, the principles they live by, then maybe we can continue to grow and learn together. So without further ado, we have, again, as I introduce people, Stephanie, I like to give people their flowers. I feel that any human interaction we get, whether it is somebody you just cross on a sidewalk and smile at, or somebody you've known for 20 years, I think that those interactions are very important. I know that you're the same way because you are a master of communications. And we know how important not only spoken and written communication are, but the communication of what we say with body language and how we show up every day, how we carry ourselves, the glance across a room, like all of the things underneath communication. So I'm excited to have you here. And there's two things I wanted to compliment you on. And I call this giving guests their flowers. The first is Stephanie is actually one of the very first people that I got to connect with and meet in the PCM process communication model global community. And you were so kind and welcoming to me. I had gone through a lot at that time. And you were just so open to connecting. I remember us having I think the first time we met, you were living in Mexico at the time, and we had this great conversation. And you are one of those people that immediately, when I connected with you, you not only made me feel seen and heard, you just connected authentically. So I want to thank you for that and give you some flowers. The other thing is more of a technical detail, but I think it matters. And maybe this will be a tidbit to inspire people on LinkedIn in particular. One of the first noticings that I also had when I connected like on LinkedIn with Stephanie was that she had ABD after her name. And so it was one of the things that, again, you never know what owning authentically who you are does for someone else. So I don't think that I've told you this, but that I was so insecure about where I've been at in my PhD journey. And when I met you, that was one of the first things that I went, what are you ashamed of, Justine? And just like, I saw a model, a mirror, if you will, of somebody who said, yeah, okay, this is who I am. This is what I'm working on. Like, because I had this dilemma I'm first in my family with a lot of things. And it's this dilemma of pressure, probably self-induced, a lot of it. But I thought, man, I'm feeling like I'm falling behind, or I'm feeling like a failure. And I remember you saying something like, why would you even think that way? Just be exactly who you are. But I want to say that because it's a small thing that sometimes we don't even think about our messaging and how we embody that confidence. But that was the very first thing that it became a magnificent connecting point from me to you. So I'm saying that because it let me know, quit getting hung up on titles and people thinking or asking about your journey. do what you need to do in your own time and be confident in it. So that might sound really wild, but that was a very small thing that just let me know it's okay. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. So I wanted to give you those flowers. Not only were you so welcoming to our global community, and then I got to meet her face to face this past summer. So going on a year this coming summer, but in France at the first international conference. So I just wanted to give you a few flowers, and I will let you introduce a little bit of who you are to the audience. Again, you have a communications background degree. You've done a number of different things, and you are ABD, all but dissertation. Is your focus area for that? You going to tell us, or okay? So without further ado, our guest for this episode, the Stephanie Barron.
ABD.
ABD. She's a doctor. She's a doctor in my heart.
Now we got, listeners scrambling with like, what the hell does ABD mean?
Right. It's so right. And that's the funny part of it. I say that very vulnerably to you all in the audience, because we all get caught up on what we think we're supposed to be doing. And it's such a one lens, like, no, nobody's looking that close. It's okay. And a lot of people might not even know what that means. So all but dissertation, here we are. How would you introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Justine, for such a wonderful introduction. Now I have to live up to that. It was very easy. I remember that time when we first talked. I was, in my living room of my house in Mexico, which was such a wonderful time, such a healing time for me. The Mexican people are the best people on earth in my heart, and I will definitely go back very soon. And I remember connecting with you thinking, such a bright soul. And it was just coming through Zoom that you had not only this smartness, this intellectual savviness, but it also, you had a heart that was, just inspiring everything, every word, every move you were making.
Thank you.
And when I met you at the conference, I was like, oh my God, she's the real thing.
Oh, thank you.
It's
thank you.
You know what, we talk on Zoom and then we meet in real life. It's a little bit like meeting somebody you watched on TV and you're like, do they look the same? Do they speak the same?
Yes.
And you're exactly the same, because I remember in that huge, gorgeous hall in France,
Yeah.
we were over 300 people, and I turned around and I saw you and I was like, oh my God, that's Justine.
And I did the same thing. I run by, but the other registration people are probably like, whoa, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
I'm like,
what's happening? Yeah, what is happening? But I do remember that moment because your clients and the people that you interact with on a professional basis, and we'll keep it on the professional basis for the sake of the podcast, are very lucky to have you, because they get 200% of what they're buying.
Thank
And I will never hesitate 1 second when we have talks about diversity and talks about true, authentic communication and connecting with a team. I'm just looking forward to the times when we're going to collaborate together on projects, and those are our. So yeah.
Likewise. So
with
you said what? Sorry.
You are easy to connect with.
Well, likewise. So how would you take us through the journey of is your official title with Kaler Communications? Your official title is Chief People Officer? Am I thinking of your title, or no? I apologize.
That sounds so good. I want that title. Yes. Actually, CPO stands for Chief Projects Officer.
Oh,
but I hate that, because like I'm like, can we get a real project manager, please? Because this is awful.
so that's so funny though. Hey, let them know. It just thought it meant Chief People Officer.
And that's what I want. That's what I want to do when I grow up. I want to be chief people officer. I just because this is what we need. You know, there's one thing, and I'll just take right away a segue and just rein me back in if you need to. But I was at a conference at a Center for Leadership of a major US university, which I won't say the name of.
Okay.
You'll see why in a minute.
Okay.
I was there this week. I spent 2 hours in traffic to go listen to that 1 hour presentation from two writers who wrote a book about leadership. So, you know,
Mhm.
I hear a conference about leadership, I just go, you know, it's like ice cream truck for me.
Yeah,
Oh,
we share that. An opportunity to learn. Okay.
and the whole presentation of the book was very interesting. It was like, well, leadership is not what it used to be. We need to change the way we see leadership. I'm like, yes,
Hmm.
that's my motto. That's what I live by. Um, and all I heard was VUCA, this complexity that, and if I hear VUCA, VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, audacity, you know, like that
Oh,
word
where
that
does
people,
that really quick for listeners too? Because we have a broad audience, and even for myself, this is
yeah,
actually one of the first times you know, in a lot of professional worlds, I will also say this, we are so good about coming up with acronyms,
yeah.
and there's a lot out there. But VUCA, what is that? So you mentioned volatility, uncertainty, complexity,
Audacity.
the
Oh,
object.
sorry. Actually, that's my take on it. Ambiguity.
Ambiguity.
Of
Okay, I
course,
always
when I
think of this
remember
when I think of,
audacity.
yeah, when I think of ambiguity, I always think of like, oh, I don't know. But where is this a corporate term? Is this a
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it's a style of leadership supposedly. We've been hearing this for, I've been, you know, around for a while. I'm not going to say the years because I don't want to date myself. But I've been hearing that crap because it's crap. Sorry about this.
you
Yeah,
when you say crap, do you mean leadership lingo that we sling around?
exactly. And when we come to complexity, I absolutely hate it. Leadership is about simplicity and authenticity, and it's about people. Period.
Mm,
Is nothing complex about it. There is nothing ambiguous about it. We're people. That's just who we are. As soon as we start putting those labels with complex words, what actually not complex word, complicated words.
yeah.
It's just to show how smart we are. You and I know this. We know it's actually a first sign of stress of some personality types. Um, and the thing is, we're not helping anyone. So first of all, I've been in leadership for a while. I went from corporate strategy processes to leadership to slowly getting sick and tired of failing with my clients
Okay.
because 80% of companies fail within the first 5 years.
Yeah.
And I've been in the trenches with my sleeves rolled up with my clients, failing with them and not understanding why we fail. We had the best products, the best placement, the best price, and we had the best strategy. What the hell happened?
Right.
And then eventually, at one point, I was able to take a step back and see people happen. I can have the best product at the best time on the best market if my people don't get along. If
Mm.
my people sabotage the team, sabotage themselves, it's doomed. And this is what those 80% of failure are. They're not about a bad strategy. They're not about, ooh, I ignored a VUCA. Um,
Or this framework or this competency model.
exactly.
Ooh. We're being a little prestigious audience. I mean, it's not, please also don't misinterpret. We value all types of knowledge and information, but I wholeheartedly agree. We do a great job. This is just humans, right? Our branding is humans. We do a great job of trying to overcomplicate very simple things, which are built on a few common lived human experiences. And
Exactly.
and spending enough time to go, do I value this person sitting across from me and their humanity in the same ways that I value my own and everyone else that I encounter? And
Mhm.
what can I learn about them? What can I learn through them? What can I learn from them? What can we learn together?
Exactly. And so when it comes to this leadership position of trying to make it more complex, it's about, let me show you how smart I am, so you'll pay me a hefty fee of consulting. And
Mm,
that's lost opportunity.
yeah.
Lost opportunity for people, because then we're going to spend thousands and tens and thousands of dollars in trainings, and it's not going to change anything in
Yep.
how comfortable and how fulfilled your
Yeah.
team is when they come to work. And so, first of all, I was extremely irritated by those two authors my age pretending to ash out something original that I've been listening for 20 years, literally. And then a student came up and asked a great question about ethics.
Mm,
And he said, I'm consulting with my startup for a client, but I've got an ethical dilemma. Um, they're polluting the environment, basically. And we're supposed to tell them to stop, but it's going to cost money and da 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 da. And I'm
mhm.
like, this is a no-brainer. And I heard those two authors, two consultants who are saying they're consulting to Fortune 500 in Google, hesitate and dance around the answer. And I'm like, there's no hesitation. We're in 2024. We've seen enough horrors. We're back in the middle of wars. There's no hesitation to have in terms of ethics.
Mm,
If your leadership is not ethical,
yeah.
if you, but it could cost money, so it's hard to tell that to your client, you should not be in this business. I'm sorry to be that blunt,
Yeah.
but we are living through a major societal crisis because we have done things a certain way that damage the environment, that
Mm,
damage our health.
yep.
And I see a lot of the new generation saying that's enough.
We've seen the impact that the concept of empire has had and the
Mm,
destruction it has had when we are looking to, I think you'll appreciate this differentiation. Like we're looking to get ahead instead of how can we come together?
yeah.
Why do we think at times we have to run a race alone?
Mhm.
Part of that, as you and I know, some of it could be personality. Some of it could be, right? It could be things that we've experienced and we get untrusting. And you see this happen over time, but this is nothing new under the sun as far as civilizations. We've
Right.
seen this, throughout eras of history, if we really look. And I think you bring up a really powerful thing, which is we are all part of Earth right now and ushering in the opportunity to see things a truly different way. And I think for people who think similar to you and we're looking at this opportunity of like, okay, we know there's nothing new under the sun, but how do we help each other learn and grow in this life experience that we are all having? Not because we compare experiences, not because any one of the 8+ billion people on this earth have had the same exact experiences, but there are common things such as joy, grief, things that are part of the human experience, how we respond in trauma. There's going to be a certain pattern by which Stephanie responds to something and a certain pattern which I respond to something. Um,
Mhm.
so when you think about your work and you getting kind of this stale taste in your mouth over the years,
Mm.
being very adept at being a strategic advisor, doing these things, what has led you to the point now where you're saying enough is enough, and also choosing kind of a different path from that? That's an interesting, so, and if you all see me writing down, I'm taking notes as we interview here, that you mentioned 80% of companies fail in the first 5 years, no
Something like that.
matter industry, no matter sector.
Yes.
So clearly that's people issues, communication issue, like people to people, and are we understanding each other? One of the recent studies that I was looking at actually with like yesterday was to your point about the up and coming generations, about 60%, I think it said 60% of anyone below the age of 35, the 60%, their top thing that they're researching when they apply for a job is the company's beliefs. And then going further, I'll contest to this as a millennial. I did this actually prior to joining PCM and becoming certified. I researched then the people who were the decision makers. So that is why it becomes more and more like, even from a very simple communication standpoint for companies, that about page and like actual representation of who it is, what you do, what you believe. So it's very fascinating to me, to your point about climate change and you going, why is this even a conversation about ethics? Why is this debatable? So I'm seeing the same thing over time, like in different avenues, different arenas than you, of the same types of shenanigans. I'm going to call them what they are. And you go, hey, do you not know this era is crumbling? Like you're not going, no, it's not going to be tolerated to just have these unethical, you proclaiming, like you said, that there's some brand new leadership pill that's going to cure all. So what has led you then to that point of, okay, you understand strategic advising, you understand what that looks like in different companies. Where do you find yourself now?
Well, I went from strategy where I started my my PhD, because I do have a bachelor and a master's in communications, and I sadly still work in the same field, and I've done the same thing kind of all my life. But I had this time where I was doing a lot of more of strategy, and I was like, if I help my client get the best strategy, for sure he's gonna win,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then I looked, after 10 years of strategy consulting, I looked at my clients, and that same 80% was right there, in my face.
Mm.
And I'm like, it's not necessarily because I'm bad at my job or because my client is bad at their job. If I looked back at why did that client fail, what did that client fail, a lot of my clients did not listen to me. And not because, oh, I hold the gospel. Why did they not listen to me? Why did I not convince them that this was not the best course of action? I saw a lot of my clients self-sabotage. So I looked into, okay, maybe I need a little bit more psychology. So I went into NLP, and I looked at NLP coach. Took me about a year to become an NLP coach in Canada. It's kind of a very stringent process.
Can
And
you tell listeners, viewers, if they don't know what NLP stands for, can you break that?
Neuro-linguistic programmation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically looking at the way you speak to yourself, speak to others, and what that and changing that way you speak to change the way you think. This is what the whole manifestation trend is about.
Yeah.
Because if you think, I'm not really good at this, well, guess what? You're not going to be good at this. But if you pump yourself up, and if you give yourself the benefit of the doubt on all of the stuff, like you were saying about, ABD, and not falling prey to, oh, I did not finish my PhD, it's a very different way of positioning yourself
Yes.
in your processes.
Yes.
So, and when I looked at NLP, I discovered process communication model.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, it's a model that worked for a NASA astronaut. It was good enough for me.
Right. Right.
And then I got certified very quickly. And I started using it with my clients and my students, because I kept lecturing in major business schools. And I went from 80% satisfaction of my students at the end of the semester to 100% satisfaction semester over semester. And with my clients, suddenly they were doing the stuff I told them to do.
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and suddenly I saw 100% of clients satisfied. And even if they had minor setbacks, I went from a lot of frustration to 100% satisfaction. And I really credit the process communication model for that.
Yeah.
And that's when I understood that it's never going to be the best strategy. Is, do the people that work here feel fulfilled?
Mhm.
Are they engaged?
Do
Then you
they have the
argue.
tools to become more self-aware of their behaviors, their communication patterns, like all of the stuff that no amount of strategies or systems can do
Mhm,
for us, because we as the people, we're the ones who are implementing those strategies and systems.
mhm.
So it makes sense completely. As you've continued on that journey, um, what made you go that direction? Even from the time you entered undergrad, what made you go that direction? Tell us a little bit about younger Stephanie.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
younger Stephanie, and I know this about you, right? You're originally from Canada, and or maybe not. Did you
No, I'm not actually.
see? I don't know. But tell us your journey and then how you came to decide,
Sure.
I'm going to go to communications and I'm going to get my degrees in communications. But tell us then, because see, now I will be learning something new about your story. Yes.
Actually, I was born near Paris in France.
Okay.
My parents moved around a lot. My dad left Vietnam in 1948.
Okay.
He was 3 years old in difficult conditions. My
Okay.
mother grew up first in Tunisia, and then eventually my parents came together. Those two families came together in a small French island near Madagascar called La
Okay.
Réunion, near
It's called
Mauritius.
it's called what?
La Réunion.
Okay.
It's a French island, like it's France. It's actually France.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
so my whole family came from there on both sides. Um, Eventually, my parents kept moving around. My dad eventually became an ambassador, and my mother, before she was an ambassador's wife, was a history professor, and she has a PhD, and she was the first lobbyist in Brussels at the European Parliament.
Wow.
She invented lobbyism there.
So no big shoes to fill at all. No pressure at
No,
all.
not
Sure.
at all. But it's actually, it's so much easier. I see so many people are successful who have those awful childhood stories. And this is how they made it to where they are, their resilience. I mean, I work on zero resilience, man. That's it. I was propelled. I have nothing to fight against.
Yeah.
And literally, I'm in communication because my mother told me to do that.
And oh, do you like how she communicated that to you?
Yeah, well, I have super smart parent and full of projects all the time. My dad would, I would complain about something and my dad would be like, "Well, do something about it."
Mm,
And not just do something like, do your own thing. Like, I'm here for you with anything you need to do something about it.
that's incredible.
And they were working together so well. They worked together a lot. And I went to law school out of high school because, like most 18 years old, I had no idea what to do with my skin. When I was 18, I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. I wanted to be a photographer, maybe a doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, right? And I see those,
Yeah,
there's so
the world is
many,
open.
yeah,
And
people
it
are
seemed like too, you had exposure to seeing a number of careers. So I would almost say or at least parts of the world, that could almost pose even more challenging, because you go, oh, well, I could do anything. I could do any number of things. I could live here. I
exactly,
could live there.
yeah. And
Okay.
it was very disturbing because I was exposed. My parents were very social. There were people in the house all the time. They were going out all the time. And I was the only kid for the longest time in their social circle.
Oh,
I was
okay.
everybody's kid. I was taking care of,
Oh,
and all those people, not one of them had the same job as the other.
right, right.
So I've met journalists and politicians and people who had businesses and were in automobiles and who were in diamonds and who
You've
were,
studied people and communication since you were a child.
Exactly. And so at one point I'm like so lost. When you're French and you're lost at 18, you go to law school. That's the
Okay.
difference. I know. For an American, it's like, what?
Okay.
So you start
Sounds
law school
good.
out of high school because you don't know what else to do, and
Right.
you don't like, or you like everything. And after 2 years of law school where I was miserable, my mother sat me down and say, "You're a born communicator. Go study communication."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Yeah, mom, but there to do what?" It was 1990. What the hell was communication at the time? I was going to go what? Public relations? Marketing was kind of starting.
Right.
Uh,
That would have been like start of the
yeah.
dot-com era. It would have been
Mhm.
coming down from the whole Wall Street 80s, yuppie, like that whole era. And
Yeah.
ending, yeah, the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
90s.
I was like, where do I go study this? And my dad came up with a great idea. He said, I took you to the US when you were 16 for your Sweet 16. You loved it. Go there. You can't go wrong with an American education. So I'm
Okay.
offering you 1 year of university. After that, you're on your own. I can't afford anything more than 1 year.
Okay. Now, just curious, so about, just so you all know, and if you haven't, hit follow or subscribe on your preferred platform, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you to all of our listeners and subscribers. But about 50% of our listenership is in North America, and then
Mhm.
about 50% is spread across around 35 countries around the world. So where did you come? And I have to know this, right? Because I'm born and raised in the States. Where did you come for your Sweet 16 to America?
Well, that was the weirdest thing is that he took me to New York City. So
Okay. Yeah, well, the Big Apple.
I
Yeah.
know, and it was less, which is like the least American city ever. It's like Paris, that's not France.
No,
London is not
yeah,
the
there's a lot of
UK.
tourism. Yes, we
Right.
have, well, Lady Liberty is a gift from the French. Yes.
Exactly. And you
Oh.
got French fries, French toast, and a whole bunch of things.
Okay, so younger Stephanie got the chance to come. Your dad says, I can do 1 year. Where
Yeah.
where do you decide?
So this was all before internet.
Right. No Facebook, not even MySpace, you all. Okay.
Nothing,
So
nothing, nothing. So I actually found a little American uh out. It was not even the consulate. It was like some little office somewhere that was, I was in the south of France in Montpellier at law school. So no, not even in Paris. So I looked at where do I find a university? What does that mean to go to university in the US?
Mhm.
Took me several months to get all the information together, and I found the Peterson ranking, which used to be huge books where all universities and
Yep.
all programs would be ranked
Yeah.
by, the best and the best. And, raised the way I was raised, I took the top 3 universities in communication,
Mhm.
and Purdue was the first one.
I don't know if you know this, but I grew up an hour and a half northeast of Purdue.
Oh, you did? I didn't know that.
So in all of the United States, you all, Stephanie chooses, which it's an incredible university. My brother-in-law was a Boilermaker. I have friends connected to the university. I live outside Chicago, so I'm close to it. But Purdue University is also where the founder of Kaler Communications, Tabby Kaler, would do a
Yeah.
lot of his initial research for process communication model. But all roads, I suppose, lead to the crossroads of America.
Yeah, it was very weird. Yeah, when I learned,
Wow. So you
I
end
didn't
up
know
in Lafayette,
Yeah,
Lafayette,
it went
Indiana.
so I picked Purdue,
Yeah.
and Purdue didn't pick me first. Took a while, so I started going to Florida International University because my mother's best friend was living in Miami, and she said, "Come over, we'll
Nice.
get you into
Yeah.
FIU, and you'll get started, and then you'll transfer."
Perfect. Perfect.
And first semester at FIU, I was like, okay, if I stay here, I'll never graduate.
And
It was party
explain
town.
Explain why. Okay.
It
I'm
was
just making
fun.
sure everyone has that context.
You know what? FIU was a very, very small campus at this
Yeah.
40 years ago. I went back actually several times and I'm floored by the changes. But it was a very small campus. Automatically, we're making so many friends coming from, and that's the beauty of most university in the US, the multiculturality.
Yep.
Oh my God. It's
Yep.
like every single friend came from a different country
Yep.
and spoke a different language. It was just absolutely so wonderful to hear about all that diversity. And this is for me what my US experience has always been, diversity.
That's great to hear as an American born person, because the other reality, like, and our listeners know, I tell on myself, I don't hold back. I'm a pretty direct person, an open person, but I think many of us that are Americans, and even if we're connected to our ancestral bloodlines and everything about knowing who we are outside of a nationality, I think that is also something that many of us in millennial and younger generation, especially, we've become a lot more aware of. Like, we know that Americans are not always perceived well, and that can be very contentious. So that's also a great thing to hear, that that happens, because I also experienced those things over time with different programming, with different leadership learning experiences. And that's not to say, obviously, we're full circle here. It doesn't mean that you don't then understand some of the systems that are in place, but it's also good to know that those authentic human connections still happen, because even if you don't go to a university in the States, if, for example, my partner, he didn't go away to a university, but he had a cousin that he was really close to that did. So even from an experiential level, in the States, there are so many universities. And to your point about the multiculturalism, even if you don't actually attend, but you have proximity, you still get somewhat of that experience of like, whoa, this is a house party, and there's literally like 10 different languages that I hear. There's all
Yeah.
types of music being played. People are having fun. They're probably doing some things they might regret. but it is also kind of coming of age. And I don't know if that's the same. I don't know. Is that a same experience other places? I don't know.
It was not the same experience when I was in law school in the south of France, for sure. There must be other, Europeans have been really good with the Erasmus program at getting their students to move from country to country. So it probably is different now. Um, but the US is still the beacon of knowledge. And if you look at, just go to a graduation ceremony and listen to the names that are being called. They're not all Smith, and you're going to hear so many different names. And the US is such a new country. So when somebody tells me I'm American, I'm like, yeah, but what else?
What are you really? Yeah.
What's your color of American? What's your flavor
Yeah.
of American? And when I lived in Canada after a while for 18 years, and it was the same. Um, in French Canada, in Quebec, anyways.
Mhm.
Where are you from? Which is a very, very different mentality from Europe, from countries where you were born there, your parents, your grandparents, your great great grandparents, and it's a very different way to relate to each other, to
Yeah.
welcome new knowledge, to be
Interesting.
curious about things.
So tell us a little, because you had this move, and that's when we crossed paths. So you attend university in the States, but then you spend 18 years in Canada.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about the move to Mexico and what you experienced in Mexico, because you are forever just beloved to and with the Mexican people.
Yeah.
What did you experience then going to, you were close to Mexico City, or you were in
No, no, I was in Yucatan. I spent some time
Okay.
in Panaro and Yucatan. Um, and I'm more of a small town kind of girl, which is weird because I live in Miami now, but Um, but I discovered Mexico when my sister got married there, 2005, I think, something like that. And I was like, okay, I want to come back. It's rare that I visit a country and I'm like, oh, I want to come back because I'm like, there are so many countries in the world. I need to see them all.
Yes. Yes.
But I wanted to come back. I had the opportunity to go back simply on vacation, and I felt a pull. I felt the same pull I felt when I, touched the ground at JFK when I was 16. I was like,
Mhm.
oh God, this feels like home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then eventually we built a house in Tulum. Tulum changed a lot. I didn't feel like it didn't feel Mexican. It didn't feel like the Mexico I wanted to experience.
Yeah.
So at one point, we were confined very strictly in Montreal. It was a very painful experience, especially for my son who was graduating high school when we got first confined.
Yeah.
And so at one point, my son turned 18 and said, Mom, I'd like to live alone. And I was like, do not say that twice.
Thank you.
Apartment.
I'm so proud you're independent.
Yes, please, honey, go. Because being a single mother of a lonely child is, at 18, it becomes a challenge. So you want to give them their space and you want to keep your sanity.
I tip my hat to you. As a former K-12 principal and teacher, I tip my hat to you. Single parents are something of a rare breed, and I admire them greatly. I have friends that are single parents as well. I am not yet a parent, but to know and see the things that single parents accomplish by themselves, I truly admire you. So
Yeah, and I say I'm single parent, but that's not totally true because I was very lucky. I've been blessed my entire life. My family has been just the best family ever.
you had a
My
support network, a support.
Yeah, and my parents first came to Canada when they understood, okay, that's it, she's moving there. Our grandchild is going to be there. So they left, they were early retired in France, in Belgium. I don't remember. Anyway,
Somewhere.
somewhere. And so they settled in Canada for 11 years.
Wow. Beautiful.
And then my sister, who was living in LA, who did just a wonderful career as a musician in Los Angeles, was getting
Beautiful.
tired of Los Angeles at the time,
Yeah.
came with her husband and my unborn nephew, and she joined us in Canada also.
Ah,
Yeah,
is
so
and this is again a learning thing for listeners and myself. Is that pretty, and I know it's a really broad brushstroke because, here we talk about culture, and culture is so much our norms, our beliefs, our values, but there's not monoliths. Everybody's different. So I know this is kind of a broader brushstroke, but is it more typical as far as a cultural norm for French people that is a norm of, it's not really questioned, like, if my grandkid's there, I'm going. If my sister's there, I'm going. Like, is the family unit like a priority thing as far as a cultural value typically with French culture?
it's not anymore.
Not anymore.
I
Okay.
was quite unique in that.
Okay.
The few French friends I've never been very much around French people because I didn't live that much in French. So it's
Right.
not the people I naturally gravitate towards to.
Yeah.
And they kind of find me weird because we don't share the same cultural
You have a
cues.
different worldview. You have a different worldview from your experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. So the French don't have that same family um, view of the world that they used to have in previous generations, where, yeah, it was true that the family will move all together. And this maybe is also what I liked in Mexico. That what I found in Mexico, living in Yucatan, and all of Mexico is so vast and so diverse. It's probably not the same in every state, but
Yeah.
in Yucatan, there is a very strong family pool. People don't get left behind. Um, you stay living at home until you're ready to get married and start your own family. And so many times I got invited into my neighbor's family gathering, and they were expecting for me to bring everybody with me.
Yeah.
So that's we are humans, and humans need to live together. You can look at it any way you want. We are humans, and humans can only survive when they're together, like most animals. But my
We're meant
family
to be
is
in relationship.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when my son said, I'm going to move out, I was like, well, how about you have one apartment in one building, and the building next door, I have my own apartment. And so we'll have this transition. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. So the apartment I was looking at was not ready for another 3 months. He moved out into his apartment. And I was like, well, I'll just take a long vacation in Mexico.
Why not?
Left with my carry-on, literally just a carry-on. I had just like 4 nights booked in a hotel, and then I was just gonna visit and finally enjoy fully Mexico by just going where my heart was telling me to go.
Yes. Yes. The only
Which
way to travel.
Yeah, which I did with my little carry-on, and it was just beautiful. And I settled down eventually. I had just the best time going throughout Yucatan, and Valladolid was one of my favorite city there. Um, and then I settled down in Merida, and my sister joined me.
Mhm.
She sold everything and she joined me with her kids. And the parents were like, I mean, literally, I arrived probably in July. My sister was there in October, and my parents were there in November. Like they all sold everything and then just came to Mexico again. So that's the story of me being in Mexico.
Okay. So, and I was curious. So people hear kind of your path. And so we've heard a little bit of your cultural origin, just a bit of a snapshot of some of your experiences. And this next segment that we always do with our guests is called Inner Child.
Mhm.
And the question I have, right, and this will go back to little Stephanie, really little Stephanie. So around 8 years old. But what is a key principle that you can trace back to little you, little Stephanie, that you still live by? A principle that, and you think and reflect for as long as you need, but principle that was instilled in you, and you look at yourself and say, yeah, that's still me. That's still Stephanie.
Learn new stuff.
Mm,
This is it. I was a very, very curious child, and I'm still a very curious
same.
woman,
Yeah. Yeah.
and and it was very much instilled by the family culture. But my sister was just not this. She was more, people oriented, and I
Hmm.
guess my sister would say, make new connections, or make more connections, make deeper connections, connect deeper. I just wanted to know everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So you still maintain your curiosity and your hunger for knowledge and wisdom and learning.
Yeah, and now
Period.
it's about, meet new people, because I used to get that knowledge from books. I would just the voracious reader.
Me too.
It's like borderline obsessive.
Oh,
Uh,
you should see my bookcases now, even as an adult. You would think they hadn't come up with ebooks, Stephanie.
yes. Yeah.
That's what makes my luggage heavy if I travel.
Yeah, I have a Kindle, but I'm like, why choose when you can have both? Paper and
Oh.
electronic. How fun. But now it's a lot more of connecting with people and learning from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And every time you learn new sides of yourself,
Mm,
which is kind of scary sometimes, because sometimes I'm like, can I be done? Can you just like, okay, that's it, we're done. We can close the package on that. and I'm sure you can actually resemble that, right? I can see you as also an obsessively curious woman.
Oh, that's our phrase here. So at the end of every episode, we always say, let's get compassionately curious together. That is literally our slogan for the Cultural Capacity podcast, because I grew up similar to you in the respect of being exposed to a lot of people. And when you're around a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds, culturally, ethnically, racially, linguistically, and on top of it, I was a very observant and pretty emotionally sensitive child. So I was very attuned to energy from a young age. And I have never veered from loving to watch and connect with people. And I think that sometimes when you do have those diversity of experiences, you do find yourself, similar to what you said, like, well, what do I do with that? I actually know what I love to do, but is that a thing? People observer? No, actually, there's a lot of careers that entails. So, because I'm fascinated by also what motivates people, what keeps people going, what is their story? And I think story is so powerful, because when we have conversations with any person sitting across from us, if you listen enough and you reflect enough, to your point, that can be kind of scary, because if you can start to realize that, then yes, every opportunity does become a mirror. Just like what I was saying at the beginning, like, oh my goodness, this is a person I look up to and admire. I need more women like this in my life. Like, you were one of those people who started showing me what it means to maybe better align my energy and my time and gifts with people. And then also, how do I see the value in every interaction that I have, in every connection? How do I hold that as sacred learning? And without the judgment of, well, that person was rude to me. Well, did we ever think about, Justine, it has nothing to do with you personally, and they had a shitty morning? So even like making sure that I'm being reflective of on myself. I think more and more I see a lot more humans. We all want to do a better job with that. Is that just me that I'm noticing that because my line of work, or do you notice the same? I know there's a lot of us who resist it, and we all resist it in different ways with different things in our lives. But I am noticing a lot more of humanity taking an interest in, oh, there is a different way of maybe living or seeing the world than what I experience.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I sense a big shift in our society to more curiosity. And what I love about being curious is that if you're curious, you can't be furious.
Ooh,
And
that's good.
yeah, and this is, a lot of the arguments I get into with people, I'm like, that person is furious. They can't be curious. You
Yeah.
can't hold both feelings at the same time.
Ooh.
So that's what I like about curiosity. And I see that new generation is very curious about things. And and this is what leadership should be about, curiosity, because when you're curious, you shut up and you listen. You listen with your eyes, you listen with your heart. And when you listen, things change.
Mm. Mm. What would you recommend and then we'll hop to another question, but and this will actually, no, we'll go into our next segment with this question. We have a segment called Frequently Asked Questions. And in your role as Chief Projects Officer, I want you to be thinking about some of the most frequently asked questions you get. And you could take the lens of, because I know you do advising and coaching as well. So just thinking of a frequently asked question you get in your professional world, in your professional roles. But my question somewhat had to do with that, in the respect of, what would you advise people when they, especially in the States, or even worldwide, there's a lot of political unrest, but the States were entering a political election year, which happens every 4 years for presidential seat, clearly, if you ever watch media, even if you're outside the US, it can be quite the circus. And that goes for anywhere. It's just our own biases, I think, and also who controls media, all the things. So outside of that, though, because I see most people, like you said, argument, a lot of times that's happening with the people closest to us because we have different beliefs or we communicate about issues differently. Sometimes it's not even the what is being said, it's how it's being said. What would you advise to people in your communications expertise if they realize in a conversation that they are getting furious instead of curious, and they start to realize that? What would you recommend for people? A simple strategy, because I've literally witnessed this in workshops and trainings, and it does not matter to an extent. It doesn't matter how many norms are in place in a team. What would you recommend if somebody starts to feel themselves get furious instead of curious? Because we both know you can't be open. Like, to your point, you can't be open to even listen or process what that person's saying. Do you have any strategies for people to consider? Because all too often I see and hear, and I've even experienced with my own family members, it's easier for people to run away, and they say, I'm just not going to talk with you, or I'm just not going to talk about this with you type thing.
Yeah, we see that a lot. We've seen that since the beginning of COVID also, where we had a very polarized society, polarizing people, which is what mainstream media is doing.
Yeah.
Helps sell stuff. That's the end of it.
Yep.
The more you polarize people on issues, and it can be COVID, it can be the war, it can be elections.
Insert anything going on.
The more we're going to buy shit, because we're losing connection, and losing connection is the one thing that is threatening to kill us. And when losing connection, we get into stress. And when we get into stress, we get whether furious, we fight, right? Or we get weepy and depressed. That's the flight, right? Or freeze. So when I feel myself every single day getting furious, because I have so many interactions, so many meetings, so many, or I can make myself furious by myself also thinking about stuff. That's another story.
Right. Real.
So about the first thing is to breathe. The moment we slipped into getting emotional, quote unquote, meaning getting angry about something, our prefrontal cortex stops functioning, and it's back to the limbic brain. And the limbic brain does not understand gradation of stress. It's just any stress is you're going to die. So the entire body is suddenly flooded by hormones, adrenalines, and cortisol, and suddenly it's the end of the world. If we breathe deeply, we disconnect that stress response that has nothing to do here. But so it's one thing, and this is the luck we have. We live in a time where neuroscience is showing us this new world inside of ourselves, where we can comprehend ourselves so much better. Breathe. The moment you feel yourself slipping into anger, it's a matter of 2 seconds. Breathe. And then as you breathe, say to yourself, I'm getting angry. The moment you label what you're feeling, and Mark Brackett from the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence has wrote beautiful books about it. The moment you label your feeling, you're giving back the power to your prefrontal cortex, and you're getting out of the stress response.
Beautifully said, my friend. That is also so much of our theory, which is also one of our frameworks, cultural capacity, at Educator Aid. It's built on the American psychologist work, Dr. Carl Rogers, that said, when I accept who I am, then I can change. So what you've given us is kind of this very quick supercharged tutorial on what that actually means. Because until I accept and name it, I think that naming is powerful. And I know for years with myself, like, I wouldn't have been able to tell you. Like, it's taken a lot of work and practice to be intentional about pausing to actually accurately identify what is and name what is this emotion.
Yeah.
And is it sadness because you're crying? No,
Yeah.
it's actually anger, Justine, and you need to feel the anger, okay? And then you need to let it go, and you need to surrender it, and you need to move forward. Because when you accept your state, then you can decide to move forward. When we don't accept it, that's where I see, even with myself, we fall into these cycles and thinking within subconscious. Again, if we haven't done any intentional reprogramming, for me, then I'm falling into more anxiety and depression. We all know depression, it tends to fixate on the past and things we can't change anyways. Anxiety tends to fixate on the future and what we falsely believe we can control or over control, which is why, to your point, and I appreciate you sharing that vulnerability, we're like, that's multiple times a day that we are all going in and out of distress because of human interaction or just our own stuff, where we overthink an interaction with someone and they might not ever think of it again, but we might be going, oh, do they mean what they said? Those things that I think sometimes too, we also get so much ego or pride to even just admit. And if we just admitted it, we could actually reduce so much stress in our lives.
And it works actually afterwards. Sometimes you're not going to catch yourself and you're going to find yourself saying something that wasn't cool,
Right.
Go back to it and apologize.
Mm,
Apologies are very underrated nowadays.
yeah.
Apologizing is not a sign of weakness, quite to the contrary.
Yes.
And it took me a while because I was really a super over analytical person. And getting to my emotion is an analytical process for me. I have to think my emotions. So it took me a while, but one of the things that helped me, and that's the beauty of being a mother, is that my child made me a better person. And that's not.
Would you say your child is a form of a mirror or no?
No, no, my child is nothing like me. And I tell him regularly, you're nothing like me. People can say, oh, you look so much like your mother. Oh, you say this, that's such like your mother or your father. I'm like, no, that's bullshit. You are your own person and you are so much better than me. You're like the version 3.0, 4.0 of whatever your father and I could be. But
I love that humility, Stephanie, because I find specifically mothers, there are many mothers who they do let ego and their own sense of self and purpose get wrapped up in that. Like, they're the best thing I ever did, but also saying they're just like me and those type of things that can actually be very harmful to the child because you're not letting them thrive to what you just said. You're not letting them thrive in their own personhood because we don't own our children. They're their own person with their own exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's complicated when you've not reached your path as a human being,
Yeah.
as a woman, and you're missing something. The child is the one opportunity to make up for that, maybe. So I
Yeah.
can understand that
Yeah.
some parents get very involved. But I do remember as I was trying to be more honest about myself and my emotions, my child was probably 17 and he was working full time. And because high school stops at 16 in Canada.
Okay.
And
Oh, all of my nephews and nieces are now gonna Aunt Teeny, I watched your episode. Why don't American schools stop at 16?
well,
Ah.
gosh, I wish that he had done two more. He was just not ready to be released in the wild.
So developmentally, you actually think it should go a little longer.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, as humans, we don't actually fully develop, the frontal, I think it's the prefrontal cortex until
Yep.
24, maybe 20.
25.
Yeah.
And it's later for boys. We
Yeah.
do have
Yep.
that data. It's later for boys. That's not a
Yep.
myth. But my son decided to go out during the week while we had decided he was not going out during the week because he had to work in the morning. And his friends were using a lot of weed and, whatever. So we agreed on that, and he tells me, Mom, I'm going out with my friend. And the anger automatically like popped up. Jesus Christ, can't believe we agreed he was not going out during the week. And then I'm like, okay, before I jumped at his throat like I usually do, because I've not been a perfect mother. I've been the angry mother, like, rah, 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 rah.
You're
I'm
human.
like, okay, what's behind? I am angry. I am angry. Okay, what else? I'm like, shit, I'm sad. I'm sad because he did not respect our contract.
Yeah, our agreement.
Feel hurt as a mother. And then I'm like, okay, let's go deeper. I'm afraid. I'm afraid he's going to get into trouble.
Yeah.
But I did not have access to that
Mm.
until I said I'm angry. And instead of acting the anger, I'm going to be curious about the anger. And so I told my son very honestly, first of all, I'm afraid you're going to come in very late and you're not going to show up for work and you're going to get into trouble. Second, I'm kind of, that's too bad. I did not use the word I'm sad because I have a very empathetic child and I didn't want him to feel the pressure of I made mommy sad. So I
Right.
said, I think it's too bad that you're not respecting our contract. And that whole thing just kind of pisses me off.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh yeah, you know what? I totally see your point, Mom. I'll be home before 11. And he was home before 11. Because when you're honest about
Yeah.
things, especially with children who are deeply honest people,
Yeah. They're unfiltered.
you're gonna get a better relation because you're not throwing so much crap at them.
We're not projecting as much. We're more taking ownership for the role.
So
Even if you
imagine
say
if you're
like,
taking
yeah,
that stance at
yeah,
work.
yeah.
Not every time, of course, but trying it out. Okay, what that person said during the meeting just pissed me off. Why did it piss me off? What's behind this? And what's behind that? And it takes a few seconds, but for that you can only do it if you're breathing.
That's right. Um, so with all of that wisdom in your hat as advisor, expert in communications, a chief project management officer, what is a frequently asked question that you get?
The question I usually get is, how do I get more of my clients? Or how do I get more clients? How
Mm,
do I get better at it? Which I think behind it is, how do I get better at my job?
yeah.
Because I'm a master trainer now. I do very little coaching. I now train coaches and trainers. Um, and I feel this dip. It's a very deep imposter syndrome.
Mm,
And every time I do a workshop, I start by telling them, please listen to your intuition. Your intuition is all those years of experience
yeah.
bundled up into a fleeting thought.
Oof.
So just listen to your intuition, it's the right one. And then we do all those workshops on getting more business because when you're a coach, you're generally not good as a marketer or as a seller because you're a coach, right? It's not your job to sell yourself. And then I tell them, who is your ideal client? Go for your ideal client. And most of the time, your ideal client is pretty close to you because you know those problems very well. You can identify, connect with them.
Yes.
Right? You're familiar with that. So it's like trust yourself in that process. And the last thing I usually tell a lot of people is please say no a lot.
Mhm.
Say no when your intuition is telling you, "Ew." Listen to yourself. Listen to others starts by listening to yourself.
Yeah. I that's so powerful what you've shared because and again, if you all have listened to this podcast before, you know I speak very openly about my journey in entrepreneurship. So much of, and whether you're an entrepreneur or not, in some of the ways of what you shared, Stephanie, it's all of us, regardless of your title, regardless of your role. There's something that we want to either be recognized for in the workplace better. We want to prove ourselves, even if it's proving it to ourselves that we can do something. We all have these different motivating things about us. But I also think that the more we can be, and for some, it may feel brutal, but brutally honest with yourself, because when we don't do that, we do show up in a more performance orientation instead
Yeah.
of a learning orientation.
Mhm.
And my authentic self, to us full circle, both being very curious human beings, is I'm like, I had a client who said, I don't know how to ask questions like you do. And I literally, I had to be careful not to laugh, because I want to say it literally was what got me welts and hit as a kid. So this
Mm.
very thing that you realize all along sometimes, like to me, I never lost that. And it actually was my form of survival, because for me, I consumed books like you. They were my ticket to seeing the world. But then
Mm.
you're also in environments where maybe you're told, and I'm not alone in that at all, and I'm not a victim. It's just this reality that often the thing that we are very good at, which for me, a lot of what I'm good at is asking questions, because I really want to know and I really want to learn somebody. It's sometimes the very thing that we quote unquote got in trouble for, but because it made somebody else uncomfortable. So,
Yeah.
so the very fuel that I create my inventories and research tools and stuff around is also the thing that used to get me in trouble as a kid. And I know that for some, maybe you find that triggering. Maybe you go, well, no, I'm still mad about this in my, but I think there's so much power in going back to who were you as a little kid and how much of that is still in you, because the world, and you know this from being in the NLP work, the world often paints and programs how we should think and believe, whether it's through school, through religious institutions, through all of the experiences we have, our family structures, everything. This is what understanding culture and people's norms and values and beliefs and the things that drive them, this is what that's all about. And to me, two of the best free gifts we get as humans living this experience are communication and culture.
Mhm.
And that, communication is a handshake, is me baking my neighbor a pie because I know they lost their mother. That is communication. And it's also culture, because you're
Mhm.
sharing a belief, you're sharing a value that you hold, and you're saying, I see you. I see you and I accept you just as you are. And I think sometimes when we see ourselves struggling to accept others, that's that brutal truth. I would say, go. I have a friend who does this in her training workshops. Actually, she gets little mirrors at the Dollar Tree, and she has them, like, you look at yourself to say the affirmations or to say the things, because we're often just out here projecting how we feel about ourselves. So if I can encourage people to just see your journey as a gift, and not one that you have to bastardize or victimize yourself, but look at the gifts you've been given in this life. We can't go back and change the past. We can't control the future. But to your point about the strategies, whether it's understanding the conscious, the subconscious, the superconscious, whatever work path floats your boat, start somewhere and get curious about yourself, because that's the thing I notice most in trainings with groups of people, no matter their degree, no matter their age, no matter their race, no matter, is that our lack of curiosity towards self is what shows when we're not open to connecting with other people.
Right, right. Absolutely. You're right. And I really like what you bring when you're saying we all need to be recognized, we all need to be stimulated. Those basic psychological needs, which are, central to process calm.
Yeah.
It's just like sleeping. If I get to a meeting, I haven't slept, I haven't eaten, I haven't drank, I'm going to be obnoxious. And it's the same if I get to a meeting and I expect everybody else to recognize me. That means I'm not getting enough of that. That means I'm getting to work drunk. I wrote an article the other day on, why are you showing up drunk at work?
Yes.
That's the effect it has. Not taking care of a psychological need has the same effect as drugs and alcohol. It impairs our thinking. And you can be curious. You have to be out of stress to be able to be curious. So you have to take care of those needs for deep recognition, and you have to be stimulated the right way. That's why I love to have something like process communication, because it's like this magic wand, man. It works every time. And it's so easy to use as a safety net for myself and for others.
I've shared this before here on the podcast, and actually it's one of our most listened to episodes still to this day. And I think it was recorded maybe a year and a half ago. But I just did like an overview of what is the process communication model. And so often our work at my organization goes back to elevating those principles. It's an honor to be a certified trainer. I'm certified in 2 different certifications, but in our structure with Kaler Communications, with Process Communication Model Worldwide, not only did I find a global network, but one of the cool things was in your role, if you could break this down for people too. So this last part of our podcast is always unapologetically promoting you. So if you have other projects, I want to hear about those, but because we're already talking PCM and I know we're both passionate about it, describe for people that structure, because Stephanie is in our structure. She's my elder, meaning she's a person who understands how to train those of us who have become certified. And we have, what I loved is it's a community of practitioners. So when I say that, I'm careful to differentiate. It's not the hierarchical, like, yes, I bow down to Stephanie or whoever's named master trainer. No, she has more knowledge and expertise in this model, but we all recognize that we bring different lenses to the table. And the cool thing that stuck out to me about attending my first conference this past summer was just the immediate, it's the first conference I've been to where I haven't felt like, I just immediately felt like, oh, these are my people. The connection. Now, granted, we're all certified in this communication model, but it shows the difference of acceleration. And I come from K-12 education. You need to be able to connect with students and families and community. And like that's a prized skill. And you would think many educators are good at that. Just like any industry, we're either sharpening the saw for that or we're not. But this was my first, and as many conferences as I've been to over the years, the first one where you could talk with anyone and you're going to connect. It's the depth. That's the differentiator I also want to state. When I've gone to other professional learning experiences, period, even like on some of the calls I've been on with you, it's a difference of just a relaxed, we're learning together. And versus, I don't know if I'm making sense, but I'm trying to paint a picture for people that as a person who has had a lot of professional experiences, this is a different type of community that I've found, because it's international and because we all have a passion about communicating and connecting more deeply with people. So I did find, and I continue to find, that that's a difference between, I now find other engagements very much more surface level. Because I don't know, and I don't know your journey with that because you've been with the organization and the model a long time. Tell us anything about too, if people are interested in exploring more or learning more about PCM. I use a process with my clients. I'm continuing to ramp that part of my business up, and the offerings that go with it. But how do people learn more? How do they connect with you? And then I want to hear about any other passion projects and stuff you have going on.
Well, if they want to learn more, they call you because you're the great point of entry, such a wonderful way to start a journey with process communication model. So, you know, you want to learn more about a tool that truly is, as a coach who got certified in like you in so many models and so many things.
Yeah.
What I also appreciated, besides the fact that it gave me 100% satisfaction to my clients, is that I recouped my investment right away.
Yeah.
Those coaching certifications are expensive, man.
Yeah.
I never recouped the NLP certification. It cost me about $12,000. And
I
yeah,
didn't know that. I didn't know. I mean, I know what NLP is. I didn't know that the certifications were that pricey.
it's a year-long process in Canada. It's the only
Intense.
country where it's such a long process.
Okay.
It was about 1,000 hours. So I never recouped that investment. With process communication, I recouped the investment right away because the first group I did of 12 or 15 people, you know, my 3 days, I built them and that's it. I had recouped the entirely investment. You know, those are things that count besides the grandeur of becoming a better person.
Yeah. Yeah.
In this day and age, especially I see so many people changing careers and wanting to get into coaching because that's what they've been doing informally in their job, for instance. I see a
Yeah.
lot of people like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Same.
Coaching is one of the fastest growing industry right now because we all need support.
Yeah.
The past 4 years has deeply damaged us all,
Yeah.
and not damaged us to the point where we need psychotherapy. We do need it sometimes, often even, but we do need support because we've been disconnected from each other. And
Yes.
coaching is one way
Yep.
to reconnect us to ourselves and to help us reconnect with others.
Yeah.
And um, so, you know, point of entry is they go to somebody like you who's a certified professional, meaning you spend many hours with people like me.
We had
Um,
a blast. Don't worry. We had a blast.
oh, we did, and I just finished one class of new coaches.
I
Um,
saw that.
that
Congrats.
we trained, and they loved it, and they kept telling me, "Wow, this is the best training I've been in, even since my coaching school." And I'm like, "Yes,
Yeah. Yep.
yes." We, you know, it's about discovering new parts of yourselves
Yeah.
and connecting with people on a level that maybe you touched upon exactly when you were a child and you forgot,
Yeah.
you
I
know?
think it's about remembering. I think a lot of all of our journeys in life are about learning, unlearning, relearning, remembering, forgetting,
Yeah.
and remembering again, who we really are.
And it's about giving ourselves a lot of permissions
Mm-hmm.
to be everything we want to be. So, you know, first point of entry, they go to you. They spend, you know, 2, 3, 4 days with you. That
Yep.
should probably break down in several half days, I'm guessing. And then they're equipped. They've got the tools and they can use it every day. They can use it at home. They can use it with their spouse, and they can use it, of course, with their team. And that's already a lot. Then we've got generally about a third of those people were like, you know what? I want to go further. I want to be able to debrief a profile
Yep.
of process communication. I want to be able to use that as my main work tool.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're already coaches, sometimes they're not. And so then they come to me
Yeah. Yeah.
and we dig deeper and I challenge them a lot more and we dig a lot deeper into that. Overall, it's a process that can go from 7 days total to 12 days, depending on the kind of certification you want to get.
Yeah, mine was just to paint you all a picture. Mine was, and I'll add a little personal story as well, just about the impact, because I think I am a huge proponent of if you are not investing in something, number one, for your own growth, and it's not a model that you see with your own growth, chances are you're not going to be able to sell it or incorporate it into your business. So I would say that, like, be leery if you're a person who is only seeking out titles or degrees or certifications simply for having it. I would say be careful with anything, number one, but especially when it comes to what I deem to be one of the best that I found in the PCM model, meaning I decided to do it because I found out about it in my PhD program. So shout out to Dr. Ryan Donlin, who is also
Yeah.
a master trainer, incredible just PCM practitioner and coach and trainer, all the things. But he really lives that and walks that in his life. It's something that I admire about so many people in our community. It's just that raw vulnerability, like, yeah, to be straightforward. But I went through the training with Dr. Michael Gilbert, who's one of the original people that's part of this whole process and certified in process education model. I went through it actually when we were still very much on lockdown. So it was a unique experience because there was so much happening. A lot of the work that my company does is cultural change management with organizations and K-12 school districts, as well as diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging work, which to me, they go hand in hand, understanding ourselves, understanding others. But one of the biggest things that I reaped from it, number one, not only has it helped my business from my own communication, it was at a time, to your point, when that was something I needed in myself. So from my experience, we were actually online for 5 days straight, like 8 hours a day. It was with two other colleagues from my same PhD cohort. So shout out to John and Dr. Dan Pio, two of my colleagues and friends. They are both school administrators in the state of Indiana. But I say all of this to say, to take you on that journey. We bonded deeply, even as a trio of colleagues that became friends and experienced a lot of life because we would meet up in between, and then we took our final exam, did the final training. So for me, it was quite the process. Each of us got 2 different certifications, and to give people that idea of the commitment, the vulnerable part of it. And I shared this I did a master class in France after the conference for 2 days. But I shared this there during that time period, and actually then 2 years later, exactly because I got certified technically January 2021, I became certified. A year later, my mother tragically passed away. So 2 years ago, but I will say this because my mom had a lot of mental health things, even from the time we were children. What I will say, and what I attribute to me, even that last year of connecting with her, I had a totally different acceptance and perspective on who she was because of PCM, and having more acceptance of who she was, because I myself had gone through so much evolution. So I would also say this transparently, this process is impactful because it challenges who you are and to examine everything. So I would say, once again, we are not a surface level approach. And I think that's good. I think that that's a good thing. It's something that really sets the model apart. And I will also share this. So Stephanie, you have a clear picture. One of the survey questions I've asked now in feedback after I do workshops and stuff with groups, it does not matter if, and we serve tri-sector, K-12, nonprofit, and corporations. Doesn't matter the sector. Consistently, when I just ask the question on a survey, when was the last time you engaged in some type of a leadership profile? And I just call it that. I say like DISC or etc.
Yeah.
Many professionals, multiple degrees, respond with, don't even really know what you're talking about, decades ago, or maybe within the last 5 years. So even from a leadership stance, I think not only are we hungry for the skill set and connection coming out of post-pandemic, but furthermore, because Generation Alpha and Generation Z in particular, they've grown up in a different world and different communication than all, like it's that gap itself, right? Intergenerational communication, cross-cultural communicate, like, so we could go a number of directions, but I wanted to share that vulnerably so people also understand, like, my first motive, and right, even now, I'm just now starting to incorporate more strategically and position this in my business because it's number one, such a need, at least in the United States, from what I found as a practitioner. But number one, it was about me. It was about me to start with.
Yeah, it starts with us. It starts with us, and that's what PCM allows us to do, is make more room inside
Yeah.
and use more of us. And I started communication when I was 23. Started studying communication. I've got 2 masters, and I know everything there is to know about communication
Yep.
theory and communication models. Still, when I discovered PCM, I was like, holy shit. Sorry.
You don't have to be sorry.
I have been underusing parts of me. I've been hiding parts of me, ignoring parts of me. And at the time I started studying process communication years ago, my son, who's a beautiful soul, beautiful human, uh, told me, I want to live with dad full time.
Mm,
He was 50-50, like most
yep.
divorced kids. And it was just this major blow to my heart. And I cried every night for a month.
Yep.
We had no conflict. I could not comprehend what I was doing wrong. Thank God at the time I was going through process communication and I got it, what I was doing wrong. And it's normal as parents, we do the best we can, and there's no school for that.
No.
And at the same time, I understood deeply what I was doing wrong with that child. And at the same time, it was not that bad. And
Yeah.
it was so easy to fix.
Yeah.
And I fixed it so easily. And 3 months later, he came back. And 6 months later, he was living with me full time. And so I really credit having a relationship with my son to my use of a super simple model, yet unbelievably powerful.
Yeah.
And that's what we want in life. We don't need more VUCA.
No more acronyms. No.
We need to be using things that allow us to come back to be human beings instead of human doings. And
Yeah.
this is
That's
communication helps
Yeah,
us.
that's the trend I wanted to denote too, at least from my lens, is especially if you're a person and you're listening to this and you're part of an organization's diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging efforts. This is a trend, and this is one process and system that could maybe help as far as people management and human resources. The thing that I see is, number one, I shared that data earlier because I still get surprised, like, oh, wow, people don't know what a leadership profile is, or like even the concept. That's surprising to me. And also it's not, right? So get past that reaction, Justine. But then furthermore, we have this trend that's going to be happening. So in organizations where you're prioritizing the beliefs, and making sure that you have a powerful mission and vision that's really lived out and actualized by the people in your organization, the trends for even diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging work is that we also have to have some type of human-centered data. And when I say that, I mean data that not only helps you understand the humans in your organization better, but it also helps them twofold. And that's what else I've seen, to your point. Almost every client who has gone through this with me, they're coming for professional and they think, yeah, I need to improve this in the workplace. And all their feedback is always, this has changed my relationship with my kids. This has changed how I see my wife. This, da, 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 da. And so to me, it is that twofold, and so much of my own personal philosophy. If I'm doing something, it's not just for professional. It should holistically help me grow as a human. So I put that out there because to me, engaging in a process like this is a simple way that as you usher in 2024 and beyond, you can really get to know your people, but also value your people. I mean, it's a huge value add. So imagine the power if HR is looking to bring people in a powerful onboarding process where they say, I see you, I want to know you and understand you. Imagine if part of your onboarding process was you get a 360-degree look at yourself, how you
Mhm.
manage stress, and how you can better have a plan for yourself when you're feeling stressed and advocate for yourself.
Mhm.
Sign me up. I want to work there. So,
Yeah, exactly. It's like those tests you can do to see what kind of
yeah,
food you're intolerant to, and
yeah,
most of them we don't know. We
yeah.
consume them, and we're like, I don't understand. I always have a
No,
tummy
no
ache.
wonder my body's inflamed.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And it's exactly that. We have normalized human inflammation.
Yeah,
We have normalized people getting pissed at each other, and we have normalized not being happy at work. We have normalized hating our boss.
yeah.
None of that is normal.
No, no.
And it doesn't have to be. And so when you discover a tool that allows you to just appease things, oh, what? And you know, I just trained executives of a major international corporation, send them an email 1 week later saying, hey, how are you guys doing? What are you doing since we last met? And one of them had an automatic out of office reply, and she's on maternity leave.
Mm-hmm.
And 1 week later, she still sent me an email saying, hey, I'm on maternity leave and I'm so excited because now I've got process communication with my kids. So I can't wait to use that with them. Now, of course, they're going to be a bit young for me to figure out their profile, but it's really going to be exciting as a parent. I feel like I have a superpower. And I was like, yes,
Yeah,
that makes it all worthwhile.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so passion project. We've had our little PCM chat. You all have indulged us in our one of our shared passions. What other passion projects are you working on? Do you want to share about? Where can people find you? We'll definitely link your LinkedIn profile because you not only interact a lot, but you put out a lot of great articles and content. So it's a great place to connect with Stephanie. So we'll link your LinkedIn profile. What else are you working on that you want the people to know about?
Well, I'm going to corner you here publicly.
Oh Lord.
Um, for the past 5 years, I've been writing a book on leadership, and I've just realized a year ago that there is no sense in writing a book on leadership alone.
Mm-hmm.
Because leadership is not about being a loner and being that hero or whatever. It is
Really?
together.
It's not about us standing
Not that.
with the flag going, follow me.
Yes. So you know, like a leader is not a leader. It's about the community.
Yeah.
So this is my passion project, is getting this book project together. And one of the chapters, I have this vision of you and I writing it together.
Oh, you're not cornering me. She's simply holding us accountable for a conversation we had about a year ago.
Yeah, because I
It's
just
healthy accountability.
which you know that book is more of it became, instead of me showing how expert I am, which I am absolutely not, the years come by and I realize how little I know. But
Isn't
this
that
book is
strange?
about,
Isn't that strange how the older we get, the more
yeah.
we realize the less we know?
Oh gosh, yes. It's but at the same time it's so satisfying because you're like, okay, there's still more to know. But it's more it's a passion project now because instead of an obligatory step in my career, because it's the opportunity for me to connect deeply with people I admire and who feed me just amazingly. So that's why, you know, I picked you and say,
Be honored. You know I'd
let's
be
see if I
honored.
can get her to work with me on this, and let's see how we can,
Be
you know,
honored.
what kind of birth child can we have
Yes.
together?
Oh, well, look, okay, the world heard it. So we put it out
Yep,
to the universe. We
that's
we
it.
continue to move it forward, but I would be honored, Stephanie. So that I'm excited about the journey. Anything else? We did bond a lot. Oh, and we didn't really go down these paths in this interview, but we bonded a lot over our love of the esoteric and spiritual journeys and all the things as well. And I know you and your sister work together on things, and me
Oh,
and
yeah.
my sister work together.
My
So
sister.
who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what other
Yeah.
collaborations?
We're both blessed with amazing
Yeah.
sisters. And my sister continues on her journey. She's a well, for lack of better words, a healer. She's got a completely regular training in functional medicine, but
Okay.
she's really gone onto that path of linking emotions to health and
Yeah.
helping people unlink their health to their emotions. And yeah, she continues on that, and we keep on having projects together. Um, some of them are a lot of fun and some of them more serious. So
You might.
next year, I don't feel comfortable giving too much details because I haven't discussed disclosing that with her.
Yeah.
But we could definitely continue on that for sure. And then my last passion project is to see how I can be more of a support to my 20-year-old son, who is, at a crossroad of what do I do with my life? Like most, kids his age, they're inheriting a society that's in shambles.
Yeah.
At his age, if I had a degree, I had a job, uh, life was certain, and we're just giving them very little to go by. So a lot of my time and energy is going to be spent seeing how I can support him best.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Well, we might have to have you back to offer that wisdom as you find it out, because I know there sure are a lot of other parents in the same boat as you that they're saying, I want to be a support, but then we're also finding if we admit it, we feel that same pressure of like, ugh, look,
Yeah.
what did we get ourselves into here? Like that type of, we see what's happening and we do see how different that time is right now than when we were coming up.
Yeah.
And there's that recognition of it. So, but then and what do we do? Because we're just as uncertain about economy and war and climate change. I mean, so it could only come from coming together and figuring it out together and including those voices. And to your point, full circle, having some paradigm shifts and even how we look at things like leadership, because it's certainly not us standing on a stage telling people what to do. That era of leadership is going to continue to be very ineffective for organizations.
Yeah, it's like Argyle. It's a thing that needs to be put in a closet, please.
It doesn't resonate. I think that's a good way to put it too. Like, look at the resonance. And that's always another trigger to go, okay, well, say you're not keeping your Gen Z employees. Okay, look at what's resonating and what's not. Why are you then keeping those who are 50 and over? Well,
Yeah.
that could give you some breadcrumbs of maybe what you need to shift a lens on. And I'm not saying that to be like an ass. I'm just saying it like that we have to notice. To your point, we have to start getting curious. So it has been an absolute pleasure. I will look forward to our continued collaboration on things PCM and otherwise, on our shared and also our individual journeys. But you are just a light. And I am so grateful that you spent some time with me here on the podcast. And as always, I remind you, the listener, remember that you have a unique purpose in this life. And I thank you for being here and taking time to reflect on yourself. Let's continue to get compassionately curious together. Take care.
Thank you, Justine.
Thank you.